Hello guys, I'm Grawshellar and today we have the deck list of Yamato from OP06, which is in my opinion a really solid leader. It's just that it has a lot of potential. I don't know how this can perform right now in the meta, but this leader looks really dumb. Like, just the first ability, it has double attack without any conditions. A leader with double attack can be really good. Like, okay, it's a bicolor leader, right? So it has 4 lives, that's the downside. But it's a 5k double attack leader, which, oh my gosh, you're always gonna give it so much pressure, right? And then it has the activate main once per turn, that if your opponent has 3 or less lives, which is gonna be a condition for a lot of its cards, you can attach up to 2 rested dons to one of your characters. Now that makes this leader really interesting because it's gonna have again a lot of cards with that mechanic. So once your opponent is at 3 lives or lower, you can do so much stuff. For starters, you can get 2 rested dons to one character, right? So you are making your characters 2k stronger every turn, just reusing dons that you have already used. So that's incredible. And the double attack, my goodness, used well, this deck can be like absolutely bonkers. Okay, we have 4 copies of ISO. Obviously this is gonna be revolving around Wano country, Wano cards, right? So we have this 2k counter that you can also use if necessary to rest a character of your opponent with a cost 4 or less, so it's always useful for that, but otherwise it's gonna be a 2k counter, right? Also we have Kosuki Momonosuke from OP1, the 1 drop cost, searcher, you activate main, you pay 1 don, rest the character, look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, you reveal 1 country type card, you add it to your hand, the rest bottom of the deck, like you are all familiar with this card. And then we're gonna have 4 copies of the new Hoddy Jones super rare card. Like, this card's really good. For 7 you have an 8k with Rush, and on the on play, if you use the on play, because you can choose to not, and then you still have the 8k Rush, which is good, you rest up to a total of 2 of your opponent's characters and or done. Then you take the top of your life cast to your hand, so you lose 1 life, right? You don't trash it, you draw it, so it's not that bad. Yeah, the interesting thing is that you rest 2 of your opponent's characters with no restriction. No cost restriction, you just rest 2 of your opponent's characters and or dons. If the opponent has like 1 character, you can rest it and then rest 1 of their dons if they have 1 active for defense, for example. So this is a really broken card because you can rest 10 coasts, like 2 of them, right? It's really broken. And also enters with Rush, so it's gonna be able to strike immediately. Okay, 4 copies of Capon Betch, like this card is a staple in any deck that has yellow color, right? Because it's gonna be a 2k counter, but if it comes from trigger, one of your opponent's leaders or characters cannot attack this turn, so you are blocking 1 attack, right? Essentially you are stopping one of your opponent's cards or leader from attacking, so it's necessary 4 copies obviously. Then I'm putting 2 copies of Yamato, right? This synergizes well because Hoddy Jones makes you lose 1 life, you are already low on life, so any card that can give you lives is gonna be good. So for 9 and 9k on play, you're gonna KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost that is equal to or less than the added lives of yours and your opponent, right? So if you have 2 lives, your opponent has 3, you can KO 5 or lower, right? It's just doing some math. And then if you have 1 or less life, you can add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life area. So you are recovering 1 life, then you are KOing something, have a strong character on the field. I don't want to put too many of these because this can break your hand really easily, right? Because it's a cost 9, so too many high costs are gonna be harsh on any deck, right? Okay, 3 copies of Inuarashi This is a really good card. Probably a slightly worse Gedatsu, but the trigger is amazing, right? It's a 4/4, it's a 5k, and if it's played from the lives, it's played for free if your opponent has 3 life cards or less. So you don't have to discard, right? Unlike before, the other yellow cards, right, from Big Mom, you had to discard 1 card from your hand, then play that. Then the only condition here is that the opponent has 3 life cards, which is really easy to accomplish if only 1 of your leader's attack enters, because it's gonna be a double attack, right? And then these cards are played for free. And then it has for 2 dons attached to it when attacking. You may discard 1 card from your hand, you KO up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's current life cards. So you have the ability when attacking to KO stuff, so that's always going to be good. And then it plays by itself, it has counter. I see nothing wrong with having a couple of these in your deck. There's going to be 3 just for numbers. You can adjust whatever, or just not use this card and use others, right? Like, the core is going to be there. I will tell you at the end which are the core cards that you're not going to change, right? But you can change a lot of others. Okay, 4 copies of Onami. This card is fantastic. Like, 4 copies, I think it's essential to have them. It has counter for 2. It's 3k. And on play, you give up to 1 of your leaders or characters Banish. Now, you can give your leader Banish, and then you're attacking with a double strike with Banish. If that attack enters, your opponent is gonna have to trash 2 lives without doing the triggers. Like, that's broken. Like, that's really broken. If your opponent doesn't have any blockers on the field, you put this on play, give your leader some attack power, and then it's gonna have double attack with Banish, with high power attack. Like, your opponent is gonna lose 2 lives and not gain anything from it, which is gonna be insane. And then the trigger, it's also insane. Like, you KO up to 1 of your opponent's 5 cost or lower characters. Like, it's just a mix of a Thunderbolt and giving your characters or leader, in this case leader is gonna be better, Banish, which is gonna be insane. Also, like, you're gonna be able probably to reuse this card later, we will see how. Then we have 4 copies of Kikunojo, rare. This card is also awesome. It's gonna be a really good bait to make your opponent like waste resources and stuff, because they have to deal with this card in some way, right? For 4, it's a 6k. That is gonna be super annoying. It can be played for free from trigger if your opponent has 3 life cards or less, right? Same condition as always in these cards. And then on KO, if this card dies on KO, your opponent has life 3 or less, you place the top card of your deck to your life, so you gain 1 life whenever this card dies. So they have to discard this card by other means, like thrashing it, not specifying that it's KO, trash, or putting to your hand or bottom deck, top of lives, whatever to remove it from the field, but not KO. And if they kill it in combat, it also counts. So it's gonna add 1 life to your pool. So this card is gonna be super annoying. Okay, 4 copies of Kosuki Hiyori, 2 cost, 0 power. It's a 2k counter, and the on play is really interesting, right? You're gonna be using this usually with the 2k counter, but you want to play this sometimes, because the on play you may put the top or bottom card of your life pile into your hand, and then you put up to 1 card from your hand to the top of your life pile area, right? So you're gonna choose which trigger do you want in your lives, right? So again, you can take 1 of your lives, then 1 Onami from your hand, for example, goes there, and it's not face up, so your opponent cannot see what are you putting there. And then if you're putting, like, again, a card that can be played by itself, or Onami, right? If you put an Onami, you can KO a cost 5 or less whenever that triggers. So that's gonna be super annoying. So this card is really good to be played, right? Instead of a 2k counter. And then we have 4 copies of Kosuki Momonosuke. For 5, it's a 6k blocker. and on play you place up to one of your 1/0 type characters other than this on the top or bottom of its owner's life pile face up, right? So you can essentially play the Hiyori, put whatever you want in your lives, and then play Momonosuke, and then you can place the Hiyori on your lives if you want, right? To have a 2k counter, or to play it again later, just to place whatever you want in your lives. So you can work really well with your lives with this. Also the 6k blocker, it's a nice addition. So a really solid card, really solid combos overall. More interesting yellow than in the early stages, I would say, and it can perform really well. Okay, 4 copies of Nekomamushi. This is also a really solid card for 4 is a 5k that can be played by trigger for free if your opponent has 3 or less life cards, right? If you put it 2 dons to attack, it can also attack your opponent's active characters, so it can get rid of blockers before other attacks. It can get rid of any card that your opponent doesn't want to attack with, or that it has just played the turn before and still has not attacked with them. You can just get rid of those early. So really solid card. It also has combos, so it's not annoying to have on your hand or anything. So it's a solid card. We have 4 copies of that. Okay, 3 Charlotte Linlin. This card cannot be searched, right, with Momonosuke 1 cost, but it's a nice card to have, at least 3 copies, right? From 2 to 4, I feel like they're really good, even in this deck. I don't like to put too many high cost cards, but this is such a solid card for 7 and 8k, and then your opponent chooses if they trash one of their lives or if you add 1. So it can add for your survivability, because you are gonna start with less lives and then you can have cards that make you discard lives and stuff like that, right? So it's always a solid option to have a couple of these. Okay, 200 million volts Amaru, 2 copies of this. This card's really good. Like, you can give this to your leader after a no Nami, and then it becomes an 8k banish double attack with 4 dons. It's really good. Okay, so the main is up to one of your leaders or characters gains 3k power this turn, right? And you can only use it on your turn. It's not a counter. Some people sometimes confuse that. And then if your life is 1 card or less, you can rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So you can make a really huge attack with your leader, for example, with banish and double attack. And then if you are on 1 life, you can rest a blocker or something, right? So it's gonna be even more difficult for the opponent to resist a double banish attack. Like, it can be just insane if you combo this correctly. Like, really good cards. And then the trigger, you trash 2 cards from your hand, you add 1 life from the deck to your life area. It's just good. It's just this card is really good. Okay, 2 copies of You Are the One Who Should Disappear. This 0 cost 3k counter. You trash 1 card from your hand, right? And then the trigger, if you have 0 life cards, put the top card of your deck onto your life pile, then you trash 1 card from your hand. So it's interesting, right? If you are with no lives and you're on the last hit, right? If this is your last card that you get, then you get 1 life just discarding 1 card from your hand. It's slightly cheaper. It's gonna be more difficult, right, to make that happen, because it has to be the last card of your lives. It's gonna be tough, but if it's there, you can use it, and then it's gonna cost less, right, than the Amaru that you have to discard too. But nevertheless, it's gonna be good if you have far too many high cost characters on your hand with no counter, right? Because you can defend for 3k just throwing one of those cards instead of having them break your hand, right? And you have no dons to use for defense, so the opponent cannot expect that. So it's gonna be easier to defend from an attack that you are not prepared for, right? Okay, finally, 2 reject. These are up to before the ban, because I think this card is banned. But until then, you can play this card because it's really good. It's awesome. After that, you can put like whatever card that you want, right? You can add probably one more Inarashi, one more Big Mom. I don't know, you can put more events and maybe defensive events stuff. Like you can put a lot of stuff, but meanwhile, for 4 cost, you choose between the following. You KO one of your opponent's 5 cost or lower characters, so it's a better Thunderbolt. And if your opponent has 1 life, you deal 1 damage, then you also take 1 of your lives, right? So that's gonna hurt a lot to your opponent. Like if they are at 1 life, you're gonna deal that damage immediately for 4 dons. You take your life, right? You're gonna leave your opponent with no room for defense, so that can be really good. But the better Thunderbolt, it's just so good. Like it's no wonder that this card is gonna be banned. Like it's really solid. Then the trigger, you draw 1 card. I don't think you're gonna use this as a trigger, honestly. You're gonna hard play this card because the effects are just so good. So overall, this deck is really good. You're always gonna have probably the Kosuke Momonosuke, it's your searcher, right? Iso is gonna be always a good 2k counter and card to use, right? And then you can use it, and later on with Kosuke Momonosuke you can put that to your life so that you have a 2k counter again, right? Or to use it again to just rest a character. So overall, Iso, the 2 Momonosukes, the Hiyori, Kikunojo, Onami, like those are always gonna be there. Then Howdy Jones, I think too. Obviously Capone, right? The 200 million Amaru, I would always have at least 2 copies. And then the rest, you can play those or you can change them however you like. Like more or less what I said right now, it's more or less the core of this deck. The other cards can change. Like the 0 cost counter. Like I think you're also gonna have at least 2 copies of that because it's super good, right? To just get rid of cards that big in your hand and then having 3k defense. But overall, a really interesting deck. I'm excited to see how it performs in this tier because I think a lot of people are just really underestimating the potential of this deck. The leader is just so good. Okay, anyways guys, that was everything. Thank you for watching. If you like the content, subscribe to the channel, click one of the videos that you are seeing here for more content, and I'll be seeing you guys next video.